Today, like most any other in Seattle, out here in the edges of Touristville, it's wet and rainy. The sun has long since set behind a set of smoggy clouds and embankments. A little glow comes off of a TV or a Tridio set electronics store, as has been the standard for many a years, even before the awakening. Outside of this small shop, there is a singular cardboard box that has been drug ever so carefully out in front of it. Inside is a small child, somewhere in the 10 or 11 area range. He sits as small children have done for the ages of video-based entertainment, cross-legged, staring intently up at the Tridio set, which is running reruns of Karl Kombat Mage, Suki Redflower. Just nobody really, because he's just a child in the Barrens, middle of nowhere, watching. This is how he grows up and spends the next couple of years. Until one day, he hits the jackpot. He actually awakens. And that is where we're going to start off today. I will put out a video based upon the different types of magics and things like that, but I've had this crazy idea that has run into my head of somebody who hits that sort of lottery type situation of falling into the power that they have idolized growing up. And we're gonna put him into a better character sheet today than the quick one I threw together the other day. And we're gonna talk a little bit about mage priority builds and that kind of stuff. I am using Hero Lab, which well, I'll put a link down to their website in the description. It is my preferred character generation thing of source of personal preference. It does almost all the work for you. It's great. I love it. However, it is paid, unfortunately. Um, we're gonna make a bit of a younger runner today. It is kind of a trope to be a crazy prodigy in both power and ability for the cyberpunk dystopian future type situation. In previous editions, there were literally otaku who, as they got older, lost their capability of being otaku. Um, so we're making a magician today. So I'm going to go over here. First things first, magic. He is going to be human. And then normally my preferred build for a magician is going to be attributes at A, magic at B, skills at C, and then resources at E. So it look something like that. This gives you a lot of attributes so that you can have some physical attributes in agility and body mostly to keep yourself from being geeked as quickly, in addition to boosting up your mental thing so that you can mage. Uh, there is a character that I link quite often by the name of Roy Hinckley, who looks something like that as his base attributes for being a mage. Um, that's not the build prior I'm going to use today. Going to tweak it a little bit so that I can fit certain other aspects to the build into it. It's going to be Magic A and Meta type E. Unfortunately, Shadowrun 5th edition has kind of pushed towards a an always Magic 6 type situation, which is something we're going to have. I'll have a discussion about. Your average person, if they are magically awakened, is an aspected Magic 3 magician or adept, something along those lines. However, mechanically, adepts are not sorry, not adept. Aspected are not good. And I'll get into some details on that. Coming over here, I'm going to click on tradition real quick, and we're going with a chaos tradition. I believe I thought about because this is the untapped potential that this I will call him a child because he's going to be about 16 years old has and is going to exhibit in a couple of different ways. I like that. I like this a bit more. So going into it, um, magic rating A is going to give us a whole bunch of free magical skills and spells. So as we are making a mage for the first time on my channel here, we're gonna start with that. So we're gonna open up. Oh god, there it is. We're gonna open up skills. We're gonna come down in here. We have 28 skill points, 2 group skill points, and 10 magical skill points. First things first, we're gonna come down here to spell casting and counter spelling because those are two of the biggest things that mages are brought onto Shadowrun teams for. They are there to counter other mages and to be a mage. So there we go. He will need some kind of perception skill because perception is great to have for everybody. I also am a big fan of the either athletics. Any 3 of these skill groups will work out pretty well for you. They are all very fitting for what we are putting together. And we're gonna go ahead. Let's go 2 points in the stealth group and then 1 point in the athletics group. And I totally messed it up. Coming up here, he's going to have some kind of weapon skill. I'm going to go with pistols because these are abundant and easily concealed. Coming down, let's get a couple points as escape artist because he is a slippery person. Sensing is also really important for mages. He never got any actual schooling, so we're skipping the technical skills and never had the opportunity to really get behind a vehicle for vehicle skills. So those are all kind of normal. Coming back out of that, we're going to come in here and tweak some of these. Spell casting. Unfortunately, we're going mechanics a little bit over story here into him being a little extra competent in certain things, mostly in spell casting and counterspelling, given as that is what you want them on your team for. We want him to be helpful to said team. Coming in to escape artist, let's go with I think contortionism will be the thing. That's the closest specialization I can think of off the top of my head to actually wriggle out of somebody's grasp and that kind of thing. We'll go hearing as a perception-based specialization, more so than visual, just because it is a better flavor for somebody who is used to kind of like listening for trouble to come by. Pistols, we're not going to get a specialization in just because he's handled a gun before, but never with any kind of consistency. It's always been whatever he's been able to get his hands on and use until something goes horribly wrong, and then he's got to throw that gun away or it gets taken from him. Any number of things along those lines. I have a bit of other information in my head that I will come back to on this, so we're going to leave those 13 skill points unspent for now. Popping over to magic, we're gonna go through the extensive spell list that is here. I have a link that I will put down below to a Google Drive document that is a pile of the non-combat spells that I recommend at least having an interest in. There are going to be things like physical barrier, invisibility, levitate, stuff that you'll see all the time. People are like, I'm a combat mage, and you look at their spell list and it's improved reflexes and 4 different ways to kill somebody with magic. That's unnecessary and excessive, in my opinion. I like to take 2 combat spells, 1 lethal, 1 non-lethal, and you can mix and match however you want. My preferred mix is lightning bolt, stun bolt. You can get crazy. You can go lightning ball, stun ball. You can lightning ball, stun bolt. You can go with flamethrower, fireball, however you want to do it. So I'm going to skip past the combat spells. You can pick them for the flavor of your character as you wish. We're going to come back down into detection spells. These dependent upon the situation and the character. A lot of these can be very useful. A quick note, stuff like detect enemies. If they don't know you're there, they don't trigger your detect enemies. So I prefer a detect life or a detect life extended, something along those lines instead to get over that. But he doesn't strike me as a a very forward thinker, and we're gonna get into a little bit more of that as we travel on here. So coming down on the health spells, a thing that everybody should always kind of learn is heal, because heal is great. Given his Baron's situation, we're gonna find which one is it? The first one in here that makes you not hungry, or something along those lines. Hydrate. No, that was oh well, we'll come back around to that if I find it later. Coming into illusion, improved invisibility is 100% superior to normal invisibility. And then let's go with Trid Phantasm, because that is a fantastic spell. It's a little heavy on the drain it causes, but you're going to be doing great things with it. Manipulation spells. This is where I really love to get interesting with mages, because you can do all kinds of cool things. Physical Barrier is my most cast spell across all of Shadowrun. I have used it to create mini ramps to flip over or to cause crash tests on vehicles. I've created bridges with it. I've created those airport emergency escape slides with it. I have encouraged somebody to put down the explosive they were about to use by trapping them within a physical barrier. Stuff like that. Uh, I love it. It's the best spell ever. So I'm obviously going to put that on here. We're going to come up. Magic Fingers is another good one that I really like. The idea of him trying to force his magic into stealing things, because that is how he's been getting by and surviving. Um, Comment down a little bit more. Not really anything in there that is fitting off the top of my head. I will throw my Lightning Bolt, Stun Bolt on here just so that we have a running tally of how many spells we have left. As soon as I find it, there it is. So that gives us 3 spells left. I have an idea in it for one of them coming up, but we'll get to that a little bit more when we are into the actual rest of the meat here. We're going to skip augmentations. He has not had the opportunity nor the want to sell off parts of his body. That is not how a Karl Combat Mage does things. Coming over here into knowledges, he's going to speak English, and then we're also going to speak a couple of points of Japanese, because you watch enough bad anime and you're going to pick up some of the words. Under his knowledge skills, we're going to put enter or Tridios with the specialization. Karl Combat Mage. Boom. I'm going to put a couple of points into that because he loves himself some Karl Combat Mage. Seattle area knowledge is always good to have. In his particular case, we're going to give him a Redmond spec, because that is where he's spent his time, on the outskirts of Touristville. Another thing we're going to put is stealing this from somebody that I played with a while ago in Pseudo Arcana. Magic is always portrayed in interesting ways upon TV. So, as a Karl Combat Mage, Suki Redflower, and that kind of stuff lover, when he witnesses magic and tries to figure out things, he's use his Pseudo Arcana to try to figure out what's going on as a magical thing, but it is always going to come back to him in the super stylized magic from TV shows way. So that's kind of what Pseudo Arcana is. It's not an actual thing. Another thing we're going to throw in here is gangs, because living in Redmond, he's going to run into a lot of gangs. But he doesn't know a lot about the ones that are outside of Redmond. So we're gonna put a specialization on that as well, because specializations are a great way of attributing some flavor without spending a lot of resources. Coming back over to, let's go over here to qualities for a second. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to put the one that really kind of cemented where I was going. His signature. Boom. I'll get into the details of that in just to where we're going in a minute. Other things that are appropriate. We can come down here. We can do uneducated. Let me just go. Let me just go top to bottom. Do. Uh, we can do asthma because he has had a bit of a rough time with not having access to proper medical care and that kind of thing. Astral Beacon. He is a young person with way too much magical power, and he loves to flaunt it. Going down a little farther, we're skipping Code of Honors. Combat Junkie, because that is how you solve all of your problems in Karl Combat Mage, is by fire and explosives. Mm, no. He could have a distinctive style if you like. You can get into him dressing in a similar way as you would see, a Power Ranger or something along those lines. Uh, Emotional attachment could come into play. No, definitely not illiterate. Uh, Incompetent is one that could be relevant, but I never like taking it because you always want to take it for something that is you're not going to do anyway. I don't like it. Insomnia is a good one, just due to the overactive imagination of a child, lack of focus, similar things. You're not going to want to sit there and continue to work on a long project. I'm 30 something years old. I still don't want to sit there and take a work on a long project. Liar, I really like too. He's going to tell whatever ridiculous things he can to get what he wants. Uh, Pacifist at rank 1 could totally work because maybe they don't ever kill anybody in the cartoons. Phobias, if you want to work that, you could totally do that in a different direction. Thrill Seeker is also appropriate, but I'm going to skip that for now. Come down a little bit more. Uneducated. All right. So we got way too many negative qualities for the moment. We'll trim that out in a minute. I'm going to toss some of that stuff. Coming up to positive qualities, I'm going to come down here. I like the idea of a mentor spirit, so we're going to throw that on there for a little bit more flavor. It is maybe he thinks it's Karl Combat Mage himself coming to guide him on his path. Maybe he thinks it's something else along those lines, but it gives you a route for your young, too much power magician to actually learn the spells that he has and that kind of stuff without trying to explain why he hasn't been picked up for proper schooling. So we're going to scroll through these a little bit. Stuff that makes a little sense. No, not common sense. He hasn't had proper schooling type situations for that. Daredevil, I like. That'll depend upon your personal table as to how well that works out with your GM and how often they like to give back edge. We're gonna come down to Guts. Guts has got a lot of flavor for it in this situation because he's got a superiority complex a little bit. Jack of all trades is a great way to reflect the way that children tend to pick up things faster than adults do. Uh, Lucky would be a good one if we were building a high edge thing for a young child to represent the way that he is. It's better to be lucky than good, but that's not who we're making today. Um, One trick pony, depending upon how you want to do, could also be really appropriate, but martial arts on a whole are usually better off buying the martial art unless you're doing something very specific at character generation, in which case it's only 2 karma and a slightly different way to attribute your karma to get basically an additional technique from the thing. So out for yourself has got a flavor to it, but going to we're not going to use the flavor that they have portrayed for us. Looking at the mechanics, the mechanics of it are you get +3 on your surprise tests. That can easily come from always being on the lookout because you're, as a young child in a dangerous area, you are an easy target for the predators of said area to do what they will with you. And the disadvantage can easily be reflavored into acting childish, acts of selfishness or betrayal, those things along those lines easily fit the mechanics of what Alpha yourself wants to portray, but just changing the fluff so that it is appropriate. So I'm going to throw that on the list. Coming down here. Resistance to pathogens and toxins can be something that you throw in there. He's just been exposed to the surroundings of the barrens and that kind of stuff for long enough that he's just built up a natural resistance to it. School of Hard Knocks is another really good one for the barrens or that kind of thing. I don't have hard targets yet, unfortunately, at the time of making this. Otherwise, I would throw the Baron's Rat quality on there because it is appropriate. And then looking through the rest of these, don't really see anything else on here that is what we want. Toughness is appropriate in that he is been through the ringer, as it were. So now we have way too many positive qualities and way too many negative qualities. Seeing that we're 15 overall positive, I'm going to go ahead and dump off Guts and Daredevil because that is kind of up to your table on Daredevil. And as a whole, like we only have 3 edge anyway, so Daredevil isn't going to be that much of a use. If we had significantly more, by all means, it would have been great. And I really like knowledge skills, so something like School of Hard Knocks does a lot to improve our knowledge database, as it were. I just do need to switch from trivias to interests, and that to be interests as well, so that we can have a proper representation of what they actually are, rather than making everything a street interest. Because pseudo arcana and trivias doesn't make a lot of sense to be something you learn on the street. Flip over to his magic for a second. We're going to open a Mentor Spirit tab. And let's take a quick look through these and see what is appropriate for believing that Karl Combat Mage himself is guiding you on his way. Firebringer is sort of appropriate because it is going to give you that compulsion that when somebody asks you for help, for you to help them, it's going to give you +2 for artisan or alchemy, which meh, and +2 to your manipulation dice. Dragon Slayer is right up there with heroism and adventure, +2 for a social skill of your choice, +2 for combat spells. But if you break a promise, it's going to come back on you. Karl Combat Mage, Suki Redflower being your big inspirations, that is also very appropriate. Wise Warrior gives you +2 dice to leadership instruction, and also fits that honorable acting thing. But I feel like Dragon Slayer fits that more because they're archetypes. Dragon Slayer is a heroism and adventure archetype, where Wise Warrior is a duty wisdom. Thunderbird also appropriate because it is for being the subject of intimidation and manipulation by other people for so long. now that he has awakened and he has gotten a little bit of a handle on his magic, it gives him a way to strike back and defend himself, and maybe that has called Thunderbird to him, and that has garnered him that situation. Chaos also, we're going with the youth aspect of things, trickster, troublemaker, not really understanding the proper adult world can lead into the stirring up trouble. You know, as a child, you get kind of bored and you begin to wander off and get into who knows what while the adults are talking. Uh, if you want, you can go into the dog. Maybe he's more of an Oliver Twist situation where he is with a group of pickpockets and thieves of children. That friendship and loyalty there. Rat is also appropriate given as he has had to struggle to survive and can reinforce the combat situation of wait, this isn't going like how it goes on the trade. So there's a huge amount of options here that are fitting and can be used to tailor which part of the background you want to go with at the same time as uh, giving a lot more flavor to who and where your characters come from. I am going to choose Dragon Slayer, I believe, or Wise Warrior. Which one do I want? Leadership or instruction or social skill of choice. I feel like Dragon Slayer is going to give the combat boost. Wise Warrior also gives the combat boost, but uh, I like the idea of him having to try and keep promises as opposed to whether or not he acts like a jerk, because that'll give you a. I always imagine that -1 penalty is like just an obnoxious buzzing you keep hearing in your ear that you just, no matter what you do, you cannot tune out. Um, we're gonna go over here. We're gonna add in a quick social skill or two. We're gonna add some con because children lie all the time, and we're gonna add some medic. Assign his +2 bonus for his con because that is how he has survived, and we're gonna get that wonderful fast talk specialization. So that kind of fills out our magic for now. Come back over to our qualities now that we've finished our positive qualities. Let's trim out our negatives. Asthma, meh. Astral Beacon, meh. The rest of the stuff, the signature is really what I focused on for this character to give him that extra life. So I'm going to leave that there for now. I like the idea of lack of focus of not being able uh, to focus on what he's doing. I hate using the word to describe itself, so we're gonna go with that. Um, we're gonna get rid of insomnia because that's fine. 33 over still, geez. Get rid of pacifist because since we went into like the gang's knowledge and more of the Redmond area stuff, he is not going to be any stranger to violence, unfortunately. Leaving us with 23 over. 10, 16. I got 9 that I keep. Let's just keep this, 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 and let's get rid of that. That takes us to 24 of 25. If we want, we can uh, be cheeky, do records, personnel file 1, and we're going to assign that to Ares as he has gotten picked up by uh, Knight Errant in his younger days and had, we'll call it a juvie record, but not enough for actual criminal processing. Leave his signature empty for now. We're going to come. Where do we want to go? Let's give him a street specialization for etiquette, because he's going to know when to keep his mouth shut when Knuckles and Bruno are asking hard questions. And then let's get into the part that's going to make, it's really going to sell him as his idea. We're going to give him, we're going to give him a couple of skill points in alchemy. We're going to come over to magic. We're going to go down the alchemical formulas, and I'm going to grab the shatter spell, because he's going to be a little goofy. Come over here into knowledges. We're going to Eastern culture, the specialization, calligraphy. Down here to Japanese, give a specialization in read and write. And this is where I'm gonna come down with the details here. So, given as he has grown up watching the Suki Redflower Karl Kombat Mage, he wants to make himself into essentially a superhero now that he has all of this power. He can do this good for himself. He has managed to learn a little bit of Japanese, and in there he picked up a little bit of the calligraphy stuff, because what he's going to do is he's going to make an alchemical preparation of this shatter spell that he knows. And when he's at a place, he is going to inscribe this persona that he has made up for, this mana blitzer that he thinks is super cool. So he's going to take his alchemical preparation of this shatter spell, and he's going to write it out in moderately large for a shorter person's stature in kanji, or I apologize if that's not what it's actually called, but the large ornate letters to spell out this awesome street name that he thinks he has. But he's got to, he's got to keep it on the down low from everybody else. He doesn't really tell them. He just kind of puts it in places, and then after leaving, he sets it off, and it just etches into like the side of the building his name, so that they all know that he was there. I'm gonna write it out on one of the parking spaces in my little calligraphy kanji style, and as another car pulls up over top of it the next day, when they pull out, it's just gonna be like, my name is gonna be there underneath of it, and they're gonna show them. They're gonna know that I was there. And I apologize to everybody for that crazy silly idea, but it is where I was going for this. And now we're gonna give it a little bit more support. He's got to ignore some of that stuff. I'll come over here to gear. In his growing up and him being awakened, you can easily mix up into into his backstory somewhere that he got in with a whiz gang. I believe the Merlins are the big ones. I think they operate out of that area. So we're going to go down here into foci. We're going to come over here. We're going to select combat spells. We're going to make it a rating 3 foci, because we're going to be crazy, and we're just going to go nuts. His foci is a wooden gun. It's going to look a little out of place. As I pull up a picture for it real quick. With his, let's call it childlike exuberance, he's going to not exactly be viewed as a threat, one would hope. The ability to kind of get this in places should be pretty easy, because it's a piece of wood. People are going to see a 16-year-old kid carrying around a piece of wood, and then hopefully think not a whole lot of it. We're doing it as a piece of wood, as I ruin everything, because that makes it a much larger or much lower object resistance for when it was made into a focus. He would have gotten this through his whiz gang as a little bit of a rite of passage / initiation type thing, and that is where that is going to come from. So that's his main shtick. Given as we're in that whole crazy Karl Kombat Mage scenario, we're going to go a little bit crazier with the offensive spells, because that is what you always see on the trip. So throwing on flamethrower and ice spear because this gives you all three of four major elements, which I can only imagine is something that they're hyping up uh, on the TV. It's going to allow him to, let's say, get a holster that he can wear with his wooden spellcasting focus in. And when you're in a combat situation, he's going to be the kind of person who's going to draw it out and then point the wooden pistol at people and shoot flamethrowers and lightning bolts and all that other crazy stuff. Just when he initiates and gets centering, it'll totally be cheesy Super Sentai type situations of yelling out names for his attacks because that's, remember, we're dealing with like a child here. Uh, Go crazy, play up that angle of things. There is a couple of different things you could pick up because I had to go with, in order to get the foci to fit in there, I had to go with a higher priority for Nguyen. So you can do a lot of different things. If your GM lets you, give him a car. It might be a piece of crap broken car, like a Jackrabbit. Maybe that's what he lives out of. Maybe he stole it. Any other kind of those things. For weapons, maybe give him a couple of pistols that he has acquired along the way. His armor can very easily be just an armor jacket and a old uh, motorcycle helmet. Most of his stuff is going to be dirty, secondhand, um, probably stolen. So it can be a large mix of things. Remember that in character creation, it doesn't, the money that you have doesn't necessarily have to be things that you bought. It could just as easily be things you were given from gang or other things along those lines. As he has a connection to the Merlins, which I'm going to go in here at social contact. Merlins, lieutenant, connect a little bit. He may be a lieutenant, but as they are magically whiz gang, he also works as a talismonger. Let's call him. Uh, what is a terrible, ridiculous name? Come up with. Let's just call him Gundalf. He, maybe he's a pistol adept. Maybe he's a mystic adept, that kind of thing. Coming back over into his skills for a minute, we're gonna look through this real quick and see if there's anything else that we want to throw in here. With 6 skills left, summoning and maybe binding could be a good thing to pick up just to round out his skill set, give him a little bit more of a skill set. Sorry, I just be terrible when it comes to the descriptions of things. He's not going to be summoning up giant spears to aid him in combat, but he doesn't need it because we accidentally gave him 19 dice for combat spells. Sorry. Um, but hey, that's what happens when you want to be Karl Combat Mage. Uh, Knowledge skills, there are 2 to 4 points left. You guys can fill them out as you were. Other contacts, I'll use one of my hub contacts here. Father Mercy, who is what's a good description for Father Mercy? He's a charitable organization. He takes in the unloved, unwanted, and unwashed from the Barrens and kind of gives them a little bit of a safe haven. Numerous runners have dropped people that they've picked up on a couple of different places here, and that is where they live now. A couple of runners have lived there for a little while. I got about 25 grand worth of Nguyen I can still spend. That'll be the boring stuff, things like fake sins, or I may even pick him up a counterspelling foci as some kind of uh, protection amulet type situation. But that is kind of where I'm going to leave him for today, guys. I will put the link to the character sheet in the video description down below. I will fill it out with things that are boring, like com links and gear and names for his fake sins and that kind of stuff. But I hope that the little oh god is interesting as opposed to just where building a easily identifiable as potentially overpowered mage into things. Thank you guys, and I will talk to you later.